Hi everyone, and welcome to Psychology on Demand. So today I'm going to be introducing Viktor Frankl, who came up with a theory to find the meaning in life. His therapy was called logotherapy, and today I'm going to be talking about him, showing some videos, and talking with his grandson in an interview. Please come on that journey and enjoy the rest.
And one of the most important phenomena in human life is man's reaching out for a meaning to his existence. A situation confronting me has a meaning inherent and dormant. It is a call and a challenge addressed to me, and I have to respond.
Viktor Frankl describes three ways to get meaning in life. There's experiential, the meaning that is found in awe and being in nature, and being lost in experience and experiencing others and the uniqueness of people and human interaction. He also explains the creative meaning, how people can dedicate their lives to creating something, a piece of work, themselves, developing skills and creation. And lastly, attitude. What he explained is that through suffering, you have the last chance to create a sense of meaning through attitude, how you face suffering, how you face struggles, whether it's with courage, tolerance, or understanding. These are the three ways that he describes that you can find meaning. And why it's so hard to describe what meaning is, because it's always changing, and it's what's asked of you in given situations.
Now, you've listed three types of values: creative values, experiential values, and attitudinal values.
And you may find a meaning. The average man, the man on the street or the woman on the street, may find a meaning day by day in doing a deed, in creating a work. And
that's the creative.
And in experiencing something, the beauty, the truth as a researcher, or the good in dealing with people as a teacher or whatsoever. If there is no possibility in a given situation to fulfill the meaning of a situation by giving oneself to the experience of beauty and so forth, nor to, if you have lost the capability to do your job, to do your work, even then there is an ultimate possibility to find and fulfill meaning. Not only the ultimate, it is even the potential to fulfill the deepest meaning, to attain the highest values. By your approach to the situation, a tragic or triste situation confronting you.
Hi everyone, hopefully that's given you some insight into who Viktor Frankl was and a little bit about what logotherapy was. What I managed to do after reading that and watching those videos was to find his grandson, Alex Vesely, and we have a discussion about logotherapy, about finding meaning in life, and about his journey. Come have a look at some of those clips with me now.
Growing up as the grandson of Viktor Frankl, looking back, I just consider that a privilege, because he was an extraordinary man. He was a deep thinker. He usually said, I'm not such a genius, I just like to think things to the end and come to a logical conclusion. That seemed to really have been one of his main character traits. He was a truth seeker. He tried to teach, and you know, when you were around him, he wanted you to benefit from his knowledge and his insights. And he did that whether in the function of a therapist or if you were just family. He would always do that, and oftentimes that also meant just making you feel good by entertaining you with a joke. So it was just fun to be around him, and you would either walk away smarter or you had a good laugh. And I think that's something that a lot of people are surprised when I tell them that, because they read Man's Search for Meaning, one of his many books. It's not the only book he wrote, but it has this personal story, which when I first read the book, and I was 19 years old, I thought, this was Grandpa. How could he have gone through this and be that person that I know, who's so in love with life and enjoying life? And then I realized that was really what he would say. This is what we humans can do. We can go through challenging time, we can go through suffering, and we can come out the other end. He had PTSD and all the things you would expect, but it didn't dominate his life. He wasn't a broken man who would look back and hate humankind. The goal of good therapy shouldn't be to make people just feel good, but it should be to strengthen them and to enable them to be prepared and to be able to endure suffering of any kind, as we all suffer sooner or later. That it comes with life, but we don't have to automatically assume that every kind of suffering creates despair. Despair is, he would say, suffering without meaning. If you can't find some perspective of meaning in what you have to endure, then it becomes a lot harder. And there's more to life than just feeling good or pursuing good feelings. Pursuing meaning doesn't mean that you're automatically going to feel good all the time. But as Frankl put it, that's not even healthy, or a healthy wish even. Already it has a kind of a neurotic flavor to it, saying, oh, I just want to, this or that feels good to me, so, and I want those good feelings, so I don't really care about the quality of my goals or the tasks or whether or not this is important to the world, as long as the consequences are that I'm going to feel good. This is not a healthy human being. This is neurotic. And the less we think about those consequences, and the more we keep our eyes on, this is meaningful, this is important, or this is the person that I want to be there for, the less we are concerned with ourselves, the more we overlook ourselves. Doesn't mean neglect ourselves, but overlook ourselves in a healthy way, the better we're off. Traditions have become options. They're no longer binding. He would say the drives and instincts no longer tell us what we have to do, and the traditions no longer tell us what we should do. And not knowing what we have to do or what we should do, we oftentimes don't even know what we want to do, and then it can become troublesome. And that's actually not just in times of crisis when there are few options, but also in times of wealth and in good times when we have a lot of options, and we can decide, okay, where do I want to go? Who do I want to be? What profession do I want to pick up? We make all these choices, and I mean, it should be a good thing, and it is a good thing that we have more choices than most people had in previous generations. But it seems that for a lot of people, this is overwhelming, and then they kind of take a step back and say, well, I don't know what to choose. It's so much. I don't even know where to go. And the question of meaning then becomes really a question that's kind of uncomfortable to deal with. So the meaning is has something to do with you. At the same time, it transcends you. So it's a little bit paradox, right? So meaning is there in this situation objectively. So Viktor Frankl was never talking about subjective meaning, which sometimes people they think that's what he meant. And he was always very clear that meaning is not something that we just create or fabricate ourselves, because then if you think that to the end, that would mean I could just say, well, it's meaningful to rob a bank, or it's meaningful for me to, I'm a leader of a country. It's meaningful for me to invade the country next door because they got resources, and I'll just have access to those resources. It's meaningful for me, and therefore it is meaningful. No, it's not something we decide on. So it's objectively in that situation, and it needs to be found. And one story to draw a good image to remember is the story of a student who came up to my grandfather's before a lecture once, and he said, "Dr. Frankl, I don't have time to listen to your lecture. Could you just tell me what the meaning of life is really quickly?" And of course, he would laugh and he would say, "Well, this is a good example for how to explain this. If you were to ask the best chess player in the world, at the time it was Kasparov, I believe, what's the best move?" He would say, well, he or she would say, or it actually is probably ChatGPT by now, it would tell you, well, you can't just say that's or this or that is the best move. It always depends on the many, many factors that you have to put in the equation of where's the game at, who are the players, what are their strategies. There's a million factors, and if you put them all into an equation, which a computer can do very well, then you can say, well, with 99.9% certainty, this or that is the best move in this situation. So it is there, it is inherent in that situation. We don't bring it in there, but it is the best chess move in that situation. It's the same with meaning. So there is a best choice in every situation, but we never know 100% for sure if we've made the best choice. And look at all what we in logotherapy call dimensions of human existence, and that means there is the physical level, which is driven by all the functions in our body, and which is where genes express themselves. So some people get depressions, and it's in their genes. There's nothing they can do about it, or not much. Then there is the cognition and emotion, and that is to a large part what we learned and unlearned, and also subject to the influences from the physical. So all these connections exist, and a depression can have a physical cause. A depression can have a lifestyle cause. It can be bad behavior that we learned, and that's not ideal, and that can be relearned. And that, behavior therapy is great for that. But then there's a third dimension, and that's what he called the noetic dimension. And this is where the existential questions and the questions of meaning, they become central. And that's usually out of the equation, right? And so that's also where we have our free will, and we have something that's orienting to us, that's helping us in the search for meaning, and that's our conscience. Human conscience. That will be something that's not affected by any disorders in the psychological, in the cognitive, or even in the physical. So true conscience, Frankl would say, begins where all these influences end, and then that helps us. It's like a compass. So in every situation, it's our conscience that tells us, well, maybe this is the good direction to go. And oftentimes, I mean, not always, but oftentimes that's not the comfortable way, right? So when we go after, okay, well, this is more comfortable, this is more safe, or, those are questions, that's our emotional, cognitive dimension or physical dimension, right? I'm tired, I want to go home, I want to stay in bed. Those influences come from there, but our conscience will always direct us in the good direction of this is something meaningful, this is something that needs to be done, or that should be done, and that can be done, and you're the person who can do that. Exactly. To remove ourselves a step from ourselves. Again, this is something that's a human potential and quality, something that we can take a step aside and say, I look at myself in this situation from a different angle, and I don't just have to, in psychoanalysis would be app-reacting, right? And in behaviorists, it would be reacting, but I can act, I can choose freely what to put into this world, what shall happen through me and through my actions and through my being in this life and in this world. And we're free to choose that. And I mean, that it sounds so simple, but you hear a lot of people still applying this kind of kitchen psychology that say, well, okay, well, this guy, he became a murderer or a thief, and he never received much love, and therefore he couldn't give much love. And this is so destructive, and it's so untrue. A lot of people didn't receive much love or had very difficult upbringing, right? And they say, well, not just in spite, but because of that, I want to do it differently. And I want to be a loving person, and I want to be trusting other people, because I know from firsthand experience what it means like not to be raised in a loving environment. But those are usually not the people you'll read up in the newspapers, right? But whenever something goes wrong, then all the therapists and people and journalists, and they go, well, of course, we looked at this life history, and we can explain everything because, well, it didn't get much love. So it just had to let the hatred out, unfiltered and undirected, against someone. It might be true for animals, and I love animals. I have a cat, and when she's angry, she'll bite me, and that's not a reaction she can control. But we as human beings, we can still decide, what am I going to do with my anger? What am I going to do with my PTSD? What am I going to do with all the things that are in me that I could? And there's this saying, "Become who you are." Right? Well, Frankl would protest. He would object to this. Become who you can be, or who you should be. Who you should be. That should be an element too, because you might have a great, you might become a great thief or dictator or murderer, right? Is that a potential you should and you want to cultivate? So we make the choices, and we always have that freedom, even if it's difficult, and even if the degree of freedom is very limited, say by other factors, mental disease, for example, schizophrenia, addiction, right? It might be a very, very narrow region of where we have that choice. But even there, we can see that, we can recognize it, and we can emphasize that and work with that.
I guess the very common difference between the hero and the villain. The hero decides to then make sure no one hurts like they did, and the villain wants to punish the world in the way they were punished.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And choice, you can choose whether you want to be the villain or the good guy.
For your own work at the moment, though, so that my kind of viewers can see what kind of you're kind of doing at the moment, if people wanted to follow or kind of see a bit more about logotherapy, what would be your advice to the people watching if they wanted to see a bit more of your work, film or psychotherapy, or more about logotherapy? What would you say? How could they get in? How could they see more?
Well, anybody is interested in Viktor Frankl. I did do a documentary. He was my grandfather, so I had a lot of access to people who knew him, who worked with him, who were his students, who were his friends. And about 10 years ago, I took my camera and interviewed many, many people who had worked with him. And the result of that is my documentary called Viktor and I. And it's available on Vimeo. You can find it there. There are other projects, there are film projects that I'm still involved with right now that also have the topic of meaning in them somewhere. And I do teach logotherapy. There is a course available at our institute in California, which is called the Viktor Frankl Institute of America, VFIA. There's a little course, kind of an introductory course for logotherapy. You don't have to be a therapist. Everybody can look into that. And what's new is this year, for the first time, we have rolled out intensive full curriculum training in logotherapy online by the so-called Elizabeth Lucas Archive. And that's where I was trained. I'm a pupil. I had to learn logotherapy just like everybody else. And it was Viktor Frankl's student, Elizabeth Lucas, who was his closest student, and she did something remarkable by taking his body of work and making it teachable. So she was my teacher, and now we're putting all this content into a comprehensive online course that's more geared towards professionals, people in the helping professions. 5 semesters, and it's a course where it's all in there, and the tests are not so easy. So people fail the test sometimes, but we're trying to put really the logotherapy in its original form out there for people to have access to it. So these are the main projects that are going on right now.
Everyone, I hope you enjoyed that. I really enjoyed making that, getting to meet Alex, getting to learn from the teachings of Viktor Frankl has meant a lot to me. It's really helped me find meaning and helped me in my own journey. I'd love to hear from yourselves about any kind of things you've learned along your journey of finding meaning, how you've maybe found meaning, and please do share that with me below. And tune in again next time for our next documentary.